Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 401 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. Good morning, Richard. How are you this fine Monday?
Good morning, Seth. A surprise spoiler season.
Oh, yes, it's Brothers War time already. Who would have thought? I think they started Brothers War spoilers like the day they finished Infinity spoilers, or maybe they were still going on. I don't even know anymore. But we got new Magic cards to talk about, which is exciting. But before we get to that, we got another co-host in Krim. How are you today, Krim? Good to see you.
Good morning. Pretty excited. Lots of new things going on in the world of Magic, and wow. Some of them are some pretty big news, actually. So I'm pretty excited to go over those things.
Yeah, we have some really interesting topics to talk about, some interesting new cards to talk about. Before we talk about that, though, we've started upgrading the podcast on the YouTube. So if you're someone that's listening on a podcast app and you want to actually see us, we got face cams now on the YouTube. So check out the YouTube podcast if you want to see a video version of the podcast. As far as today's podcast, though, we got Brothers War news. We got Serialized Cards coming to Magic. We got Transformers. We got Pioneer Challenger decks. We got Starter Commander decks. And then fish mail, so all new product stuff. Before we get into it, though, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you're tired of all the hassles that go into buy listing your cards, Card Conduit lets you skip them. You don't got to do all the typing and spend all the time and all the hard work. With their curated service, you can send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to put in a bit of effort on your end, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. And no matter which option you choose, you're going to get a detailed report with the results in a fast payment once your order is processed. And right now, you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with the big news. We had a early sneak peek at Brothers War. Full spoiler season for the set doesn't start until the end of October, so we still got almost a month to go. And then the set doesn't release until 2 weeks, I think, into October, or into November rather, because they're doing a paper pre-release before digital release this time. So sometime the middle of November. But we have some pretty interesting and exciting new cards to talk about. So Richard, let's talk some Brothers War spoilers.
All right, Brothers War, the next standard set, even though standard kind of just released. We have Urza, Lord Protector, 1 white and a blue, Azorius 3-drop at a 2/4, legendary creature, human artificer. Artifacts, instants, and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 generic less, 7 generic mana. If you own both Urza, Lord Protector, and an artifact named the Mightstone and Weakstone, exile them and meld them into Urza Planeswalker. Activate only as a sorcery. So the Mightstone and the Weakstone is a 5-mana artifact, legendary artifact, Power Stone. When the ETBs choose 1, draw 2. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. And then tap to add 2 colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. And finally, the meld. So you have these two things, you meld them together. The backside is Urza Planeswalker. Legendary Planeswalker Urza. You may activate loyalty abilities of Urza twice each turn rather than once. That's 5 loyalty abilities. +2 artifact, instant, and sorcery spells you cast this turn cost 2 generic less. You gain 2 life. +1, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. 0, create 2 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens. -3, exile target non-land permanent. -10, artifacts and planeswalkers you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Destroy all non-land permanents.
Wow. I mean, so obviously, if you ever get to the Planeswalker part, this card is absurd. Like, the amount of text on that card, the amount of abilities, and you can do it twice each turn. Like, the Planeswalker probably is one of the strongest Planeswalkers that has ever been printed. Can you get to it, though? That's going to be the challenge with this. I think I'm, like, naturally skeptical of Meld because we've never actually seen Meld be a real build-around outside of maybe Limited. Like, sure, people have melded before. You've had your Yisa and your Bruna or whatever, and you get Brucella, but it's never been like, oh, this is my primary plan for the deck. Is this going to work with Urza? I don't know. Neither half of the card. Well, I mean, I guess Urza in the Weakstone and Mightstone, they're two separate cards, but neither one of them is actually all that good, I don't think, on their own. So you're really playing these like kind of medium cards in hopes of getting to the Planeswalker. I'm curious. What do you guys think? Is this actually like a real thing, or is this like a good against the odds episode?
I don't know, like, okay, so I think Urza, like, the creature half is just okay, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do we care about a mana reduction?
I mean, okay might even be pushing it for me. I'm not even sure if it's okay. Like, okay might be its ceiling.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? Like, it's just, and okay is like a best case scenario. The Mightstone and Weakstone, I feel like it's kind of a lot for 5 mana, right? Like, sure, you could think of it as maybe it comes back, like, it brings back, like, what? It makes it cost 3 mana, but still, I don't know, this is like that weird Power Stone clause that is on Karn Living Legacy, right? And that means that we can only, cast artifact spells and spend it towards activated abilities.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, I think Mightstone and Weakstone, would it be too much to ask for a 5 mana artifact to do both those things? Like draw 2 cards and to give -5/-5 to something?
Draw 2 cards, kill a creature, and be a mana rock? What?
Yeah, but it has to, like, something has to make up for the fact that it's just, I don't know, it's kind of clunky.
And it's not a real mana rock. Like, it's a very narrow mana rock. I think Power Stones, we'll see. Maybe it'll shift with Brothers War. We know it's artifact set, but yeah, I mean, that's the gimmick. Like, the dream here is turn 3 Urza, it gives a cost reduction to the Mightstone. So turn 4 Mightstone and Weakstone, and then turn 5 you make your land drop with the mana for Mightstone and Weakstone. You have enough that you can flip it into Urza Planeswalker. Yeah, that does require 2 pieces and nothing to die and nothing to get countered and no removal spells. But in theory, you can do it on turn 5.
This is ridiculously broken. This is like the new top end of Standard. No, like. So people play Reckoner Bankbuster on turn 2 and get away with it, right? They sit there and they just draw. Like, Standard is like so slow and grindy that there's no like real aggro deck to take you down. And you just play these mid-range mirrors and you can just dirtle around with a Mightstone and an Urza and then flip them and then the game is over, right? So I think this brings a real control deck into the format where you just dirtle around and then it doesn't matter what exactly happens. You just Urza. And then you win, and then you can just loot away some of these like garbage pieces that you don't need. But like a flipped Urza is insane. Yeah, even if you have removal for it, it's like double removal already, right? Like you can't let that Urza come down.
That's true. Although, like, you can just kill the creature side of Urza. Like, that would be my concern. Is it reminds me of Nicol Bolas the Ravager a little bit. How it, like, you get this creature, you got to pay 7 mana, and you flip into a pretty busted Planeswalker. When it works, it's insane. But when it doesn't work, you, like, spend 7 mana, and your opponent casts, like, a Fatal Push or something, and then you just, like, cry and lose. So I'm a little concerned that that's going to be the play pattern. Is, like, you do all this stuff, and you're like, haha, 7 mana, flip my Urza, and your opponent's like, oh, an Infernal Grasp. Like, hey, GG, gotcha.
I don't think this is anywhere near Ravager. I think Ravager is better on its own, right? Because it itself is a beefy body. It flies, and it actually kind of does something immediately when it enters, right?
Yeah. Well, I was meaning more just the flipping part. Reminds me how you got to pay 7 at sorcery speed to flip it. Like, yeah, I think Nicol Bolas Ravager is a better creature.
You simply don't flip Urza if you think they have removal, right? Like, remember, you're not just playing these. Like, you play, like, Ow or something. You play Eigenjo. Like, you just, like, build up, like, your dirty white stuff that people are doing already. And then when time comes, you just play this, and then you win the game.
Is there an artifact control deck, right? Because that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, what's the shell around this? It's a bit early. Legitimately, we have Tezzeret. You have the 2 mana or the 3 mana counterspell that you can reduce its cost if you tap an artifact. Those are things that are in standard, right? You have
Karn Living Legacy. Come on now, guys.
That's it. This is the piece.
Right.
The Power Stones can be used for Urza.
Right. I mean, that's true. Like, that is true. But yes. So I don't know. The Mightstone and Weakstone just that card is clearly the better half of these two. Urza kind of sits and does nothing. And you're asking like Urza to sit around against a black dominated meta where there's just removal left and right. So I don't know, that's kind of rough, and it's asking for a lot.
I think maybe like Richard's right, and it's like a late game thing where you're not running this out on turn 3 and you're trying to like maybe you're building up some power stones or whatever, and then in the late game, once you've kind of done your control stuff and your opponent doesn't have much going on, then you're just like Urza, flip it, win the game essentially. Like maybe that's the play pattern, because I can't imagine just running this out on turn 3 very often. I feel like that's not like the dream of just like, oh, turn 5 Urza Planeswalker. That seems a little bit magical Christmas land to me, but maybe there is a role for it. And I do think, even though I'm kind of memeing about Karn because I still don't think Karn's good, if Karn is a plant for what's happening in the Brothers' War, and we're going to get a bunch of, what if Power Stones are like blood tokens or treasure tokens, where we just have all these cards that are like, oh, 1 mana, 1/1 ETB, make a Power Stone, because Power Stones like generally are pretty underpowered and pretty bad. Maybe they're costed that way, and maybe they're super plentiful. Then if it's really easy to make those, then abilities like this become much more realistic. Like if you can just accidentally have 7 Power Stones, then you're like, oh sure, like 3 mana, flip it using my Power Stone mana. Then it becomes a lot more exciting to me.
That's still
see
so
you guys
much
in the Urza meta. There better be a 1 mana 4/4 haste or something in the format to like give aggro something, right? Because if it's mid-range fest and Urza comes to the party, it's gonna be a bad time. Everyone's gonna play like blue tempo or something to try to get under this, but have you seen the Planeswalker? It's insane.
Is the Planeswalker side the most powerful Planeswalker ever? Like, no. Is there another Planeswalker that's more powerful than this, just ability wise?
If you could Tron this in, would you? Like, is this like, it's better than Karn, right? Is it better than Ugin?
Probably not better. I guess in Tron it would probably be worse than Ugin, I bet. But I think it's better than Karn. Okay. You get the Karn ability, plus you get to draw cards and stuff. Like, you have the same negative exile ability.
Okay.
I mean, Oko is better because Oko is like castable.
Yeah.
But this thing ultimates in like 1 turn. Like you have 1 turn to do something, right? Because it like plus ultimate, right?
Yeah. That is true.
So,
and outside of removal, it's gonna be so hard to get off the battlefield. Like make 4 soldiers, kill a thing, make a couple of soldiers, kill a flyer, make a couple of soldiers. Like there's so many ways that this just like protects itself. So unless you have like a targeted Planeswalker removal spell, it is going to be ridiculously tough to actually deal with if it flips.
I like it. It's Urza.
It should be powerful. It should be powerful. Yeah.
It should remove the non-land clause. I'm just saying.
That was my first thought, but then I was like, after thinking about it and thinking about what Richard said, that you can get there in 1 turn, maybe that would be miserable.
If you ultimate it, you're dead anyway. Like, I mean, might as well just take the lands for flavor purposes.
Yeah.
Right? What's the point of this?
I don't know. I still think this is a bit underwhelming. So like for not the backside obviously is like solid, but like to get there, it's kind of asking for a lot. Maybe like it's a bit early. Obviously this comes down to what like comes out in the set and what artifacts exist, and if a blue-white artifact control deck could exist.
You guys are playing a different meta, man. It's so people like Bankbuster, Reckoner, Wedding Ring, like nothing is going on. Like you just slap this down with 8 mana.
Yeah, like Bankbuster you can actually play because it's 2 mana and does something, gets around a lot. Like example, just the basic creature removal. It doesn't get like dunked on by Invoke Despair. Like these are just things that like that are just that it gets around, right, and it accrues value over time. This is not exactly the same thing.
But I'm just saying it's so slow. Like you think of this as 7 mana, but like standard start, like, standard right now goes, you start playing at like 5 mana or something, right? Like the early turns don't matter. if you play creatures, they do nothing, and everyone just is going like super grindy and late. So I feel Urza's gonna come and lay the smackdown on these mid-range decks.
I'm coming around to the idea that as a late game play, it's going to be good. Like, I think there is a home for this, and I think it'll make more sense once we see the rest of the set and the rest of the support. Because right now, like, we just don't have much artifact support. We've run into this talking about Karn Living Legacy, even though Karn is not very powerful, but all of its abilities are just like so artifacty and power stony. And you're just like, what is there to do with these power stones in standard now? There's really nothing. What are you ramping into some 7-mana vehicle, like common vehicle that no one's ever seen before? Like, there's just nothing to do with it. But I think those type of things are going to make a lot more sense once we get the rest of Brothers more. Also, I think this card's going to be kind of busted in Commander. Not because it turns into a Planeswalker, although you can do that, but it seems really easy to combo with all the like Sensei's Divining Top combos where you can like Future Sight or something like that, Reality Chip to play it off the top of your deck. This gives you the cost reduction. So I feel like this is going to be a very powerful infinite combo Commander where you get one of the combo pieces just chilling in your command zone, essentially.
I'm also ignoring the fact that that's a mana rock. But it's just like their turn 4 Shieldred. You're like, okay, cool. Turn 5 Mightstone, kill the Shieldred, right? Like we're at parity, but I'm about to combo off, right? So if there's
nice.
any synergy with artifacts, this card will be insane, right? Like if you actually have something to do with that mana.
It is nice that it hits Shieldred. That actually is a pretty big deal in current standard.
Yep. All right. There are other cards. Should we talk about other cards? I'm actually curious. There's one card that there's a callback I want to ask you guys about. Mishra's Foundry. It's a land. It adds a colorless. You pay 2, it becomes a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn. It's still a land. 1 and a tap. Target attacking assembly worker gets +2/+2 until end of turn.
This is like the fixedest Mishra's Factory that we've ever seen. Like, it is fixed in so many ways. You can't do the like block and pump trick. It's 2 to activate instead of 1 to activate.
It blocks as a 2/2 instead of a 3/3, but you can somehow chain these together into a big attacker. We don't have any creature lands in standard. Is this playable? Is this useful?
This is a great standard. I think this will be like legitimately very good. The bar's just not high in standard for creature lands. I think like if you're a creature land and you're halfway decent, you're probably going to see a lot of play. And it seems to naturally fit into like mono black. Like why wouldn't you? There's just not a lot of ways to get value out of your lands. People are playing, I don't know if you've seen this, Cryptic Spires, is that the name of the card? Whatever the like horrible 5-color scry land is, people are playing playsets of those in their mono black deck just because there's so few ways to get any value out of your lands. So I think this is like an easy 4 of in monocolor decks and even some 2-color decks in standard. I think it's going to be all over if anything, I'm worried it's going to be too good. Like I think it's going to be really good.
I mean, this card is going to be super sweet in the standard format, and much for the reasons that Seth had mentioned, but on top of that, we had talked about Power Stones and the things that it like you can spend the mana towards, and one of those things is activated abilities. So I don't know, like this is going to be something that is definitely going to go into that artifact deck or that Power Stone deck.
So I don't know if Living Legacy, yeah.
I don't know about that, but like I do think that like it is going to go into an artifact deck, right? Like there's just no way you don't play this in an artifact deck.
I think another really sneaky option where this might have a huge impact is we've kind of been talking about how there's not much aggro in standard because they just get wrecked by like meat hooks and stuff. Creature lands are one of the best ways for aggro decks to survive sweepers. Like you force through your damage with your little red creatures or whatever, and then your opponent meathook massacres away your board. You're like, well, I got a couple of foundries left over. Like maybe I can chip in these last few points of damage and close out the game. So I wonder if this is gonna be a big enough boost to make those aggro decks, monocolored aggro decks, actually playable again. Something like mono white humans or mono red aggro, things like that. I think that's maybe what I'm hoping for most, that maybe this is a card that makes aggro into an actual thing in our current standard format.
Yeah. I mean, again, we just definitely, like, if you're playing aggro decks, you definitely need the help right now. So I don't know if Mishra's Foundry is enough to swing past a Shieldred and all that stuff, but like it is something that aggro decks need.
This thing needs to be a 6/6 Death Toucher.
First strike. First strike, death touch.
Yeah, he still trades a Shieldred. It's still not good enough. I don't know if this is the help we need, but it's interesting because if you play a 2-color deck or 3-color deck, will you really play this? So it's just for monocolor decks, and maybe you're better off going Gruul or something instead of just playing mono red. So it'll be interesting to see what cards are in Brothers War to see if we use this, or if control decks use this as a defensive option. Like, it's still a 2/2 blocker. It's still a thing, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's not an aggro card, but an actual defensive card.
Or maybe assembly workers are a supported tribe, and this is like the nuts. You're just pumping all your stuff, and yeah. I gotta ask you guys about one other card before we move on, because I'm like super high on this card, and I don't know if I'm misguided. It's the random uncommon that they spoiled, Recruitment Officer. Just a Savannah Lions, 1 mana, 2/1, human soldier, but you can pay 4 mana, 3 and a white. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a creature mana value 3 or less, put it in your hand, the rest go on the bottom. I feel like this card's really, really strong. Like, it's one of those 1-drops that you got the good aggro stats, the Savannah Lion stats for turn 1, but then it's not embarrassing to top deck it on turn 5 or turn 6 when you're empty-handed, because you're like, oh, I got a mana sink, I can, dig through my deck to find something else. I feel like this card is at least great in Standard, and I'm kind of considering it in, like, Historic, Pioneer. I don't know if it can break into Modern Humans. Then you're competing with Noble Hierarchs and stuff, but I feel like in Human Tribal decks, at least back to Pioneer, this is probably good enough, right? Like, is this a straight up like Standard/Pioneer playable 1-drop in humans and or soldiers?
I think that it is definitely a standard like playable card. It just seems like we kind of when we were talking about it around Dominaria United, spoiler season, mono white just doesn't have that many good 1-drops. You have the what's the 1-drop that's available right now? The 1/2 that has Mentor.
Hopeful Initiate, I think, is the good one. Yeah,
that's all we have right now.
Oh, you haven't seen sad people play the Pilot as a 1 mana 2/1 with no vehicles.
Oh god, I hotshot mechanic.
Yeah.
God,
people play that, right? Where a 1 mana 2/1 is needed, right? And they'll play it even if it has like no abilities.
And soldiers literally don't have a 1-drop. I wanted to build Soldier Tribal after we got the new Soldier Lord, and there literally is not a playable Soldier 1-drop at all. So I think it's helpful there too. How good is it, Richard? You're the white aggro player.
It's insane, right? So I'll tell you the cheat code for Standard. If you have nothing going on, just hold up 4 mana with double white, and all attacks will stop because everyone will play around the Wandering Emperor.
It's true.
Right now, you can actually activate Recruitment Officer if you actually have nothing going on. Right, so I think this is actually insane, and people play Hotshot Mechanic like it's sad, right? So this is a strict upgrade. It comes back with Eigenjo. It comes back with Sarah Paragon. It draws cards. I think if people play white, this will be in there. But I don't know. Like, will this do anything against Urza? I don't know, right? So depends what the meta is. But if there's a white aggro deck, definitely Recruitment Officer will show off.
Anyway, those are the Brothers War cards, at least the main set ones. You can see them all over on mtgpreviews.com. We got a little gap until we get back to spoiler season, but we got some other Brothers War news that I think is kind of interesting. So one of the things that Wizards announced with this big stream is they're essentially bringing back Mystical Archives, but instead of being spells like in Strixhaven, they're all going to be old border artifacts. So we're getting a bunch of old brown border artifacts. We've seen like Ivory Tower, Lodestone Golem, Jalem Tome, Wormcoil Engine, and a bunch more are coming. It's one of those, like, you get one in every pack. It's basically exactly Strixhaven Mystical Archives, except there's one twist. They are adding serialized cards, numbered X of 500, into collector boosters. They're the same brown border artifacts, but they have the schematic treatment, kind of one of the showcase treatments from the set, and they have a special foiling process, rainbow foiling, I think they're calling it, but they're going to be numbered 1 to 500. How big of a deal is serialized cards coming to Magic? I know we've joked on the podcast for a while about Wizards heading this direction and how it was inevitable, and like getting, Mark Rosewater's toenail clippings or whatever as a 1/1, things like that. It's happening, right? Like, this is the first actual step towards these super scarce, super low supply promo style cards. What do you think about the serialized cards?
I love the idea of that, right? Like, that's fun. It adds to the whole, collector's booster experience. I am very concerned about what a rainbow foiling is. Like that is that thing makes me sweat and stress to no end. Like I'm just like, oh no, this could be the worst foiling I've ever seen in my life, right? I'm hoping it's not. But if it comes out looking like a sticker, or it comes out looking like how like From the Vault was, and if it curls somehow worse than what's already out there, I'm going to be very worried. However, the numbered aspect of it, the old border obviously adds to the collectability and whatnot. I personally, old borders don't do too much for me. I more so love the fact that it's just numbered. I think that adds to the collectible experience.
Yeah, the art, this schematic blueprint looking art is pretty cool. Numbers, I don't understand the appeal. Like, what's the point of buying number 102 of 500 for like $2,000? Like, how much is Viserys here? Like a couple thousand, right?
Yeah. They don't sell very often, but the most recent ones were 3.5 and 4K, so they're super.
Like,
but those are one of 100.
If you get a 1 of 500 or something, right, or a 420 of 500, I can see it. I can see it happening, right? But it's the same art as everything else. It's not the same as owning like an original Black Lotus where there's like some historical value or something, right? It's just arbitrary number. And I'm afraid of the bubble, right? Like you spend $2,000 on this card. Where will Magic be in a couple of years? Will this thing be worth $50? Or, like it's a little scary, right? So I'm not sure how well received it'll be. And there will be a lot of schematic cards, right? Like there's only 500 worm coils, but there will be like for every Mystical Archive, there'll be a schematic version, right? Is that correct?
That's what it sounds like. I'm not sure if that was explicit, but yeah, I believe that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what this means for the price of boxes. Does this mean like everything else is dirt cheap because the price is eaten up by these schematics?
Hopefully.
So it's like super lottery now. Like each box is worth $0 or like $5,000. I'm not sure. So I guess we'll see how it plays out.
I wonder if this will let us reverse engineer how many collector boosters they sell. Because if we know there's only 500 of each, and we know the percent that they show up in collector boosters, couldn't we like figure out roughly how many they printed or exactly how many they printed?
Will they give us the percentage? They must, right?
I feel like they have to legally in some places. So I think that we should get a percentage. So we might actually be able to figure out like print run information that would be interesting. I'm curious how much they're going to cost. On one hand, Viserys here is like super expensive. On the other hand, I don't know. There's going to be a ton of this art running around. Like if you look at the worm coil, the only difference is it has a different foiling compared to the other blueprint schematic card, which is going to show up in normal booster packs. And there's going to be a ton of them. Maybe it's actually not that expensive because it just doesn't look that unique. I have no idea what to expect with these. I'm sure it'll command a premium of some to some extent, but I'm not expecting it to be Viserys here prices. I'm not sure it's unique enough for that. I think like if you're a player, like collectors might be interested, but if you're a player, are you really going to pay $1,000 for the rainbow foil X of whatever when you can pay $20 and get the exact same art, just not with the numbering and in the same foiling process? I don't think many players would do that.
I don't think it's. But will there be 500 players? Like all you need is 2 people to compete for 420 or 500, and it's like $10,000, right?
And someone's gonna want to place that because they're actually gonna play them in their whatever deck, and they're buying 4 of the 500. Like that's a big percentage if there's only 500 of them in existence.
So if you were Post Malone, okay, you're like 420 of 500, 69 of 500, 1 of 500, and 500 of 500. That's the holy grail.
Those are the big ones, coins. Yeah.
Where your whole deck is just 420 of 500. Like you got to get every 420 in existence.
I mean,
not bad.
That would be cheap compared to buying an $800,000 Black Lotus. So I'm sure there will be people like there's Magic players who just have a lot of money. Like there are some people where it's really not going to be a big deal to buy the ones that they want. So maybe that'll keep the prices up. It'll definitely be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see how far down the path we go. That's the other question. Like, are we going to get 1 of 1 cards? Like that's a big thing in sports card collecting. Like, yeah, they have 1 of 500s, but they also have like literal 1 of 1s that have jersey clips in them and pieces of basketballs and ridiculous stuff like that. Like, are we going to keep going down this path to an even more extreme, serialized card, which I would guess so, because that's what sports cards does and makes a ton of money doing so.
Can you go up? Like, let's say this is like really popular, and then next set they're like, well, it's X of 1,000, or is that like a big no? Like, you can't do that.
I think not.
I think they could do whatever they wanted, but I don't know how it would be received by the community if they started making them more common. I also think that this means they basically can't reprint them, right? Like, you can't do 1 of 500 and then reprint that same art. Like, that would be.
But I think that's how they would, like, I mean, the fact that they put it in a special border and they numbered it is why they can reprint it, right? Because it's a different version.
Yeah, it's the non-rainbow foil. Like, it's literally in the same set, the reprinted version, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, the precedence is Elish Norn Phyrexian, right? They're like, oh, they would never reprint this, and then they just like literally reprinted it, right?
I think I wish it was more different. Like, if there were 500 Phyrexian Elish Norns in existence, and all the rest of them were normal language, language, that would be epic and really expensive. I'm not sure that just rainbow foiling is enough to really get me super hyped over serialized cards, though. I kind of think they should have their own art rather than just a foiling process. Yep. Anyway, those are the serialized cards, only in collector boosters, although everyone loved Mystical Archives. That was a really sweet addition to Strixhaven, and I'm looking forward to just like the normal versions of these, getting one in every pack like we do with the Mystical Archives. Super, super cool. And that also means a lot of new cards coming to Arena, which is kind of big. This means Wormcoil in Historic, theoretically, Lodestone Golem in Historic. Wizards might pre-ban some stuff, but in general, these cards are also be on Arena for the first time, which is cool. But anyway, let's keep moving on. We got so many topics today. The other big news was Wizards announced the Pioneer Challenger decks for 2022. This is the second run of Pioneer Challenger decks. Richard, what archetypes are we getting in these decks?
All right, so Pioneer Challenger decks are available on the website. There's also a Game Night deck list, but we're not going to talk about those. But Pioneer Challenger decks, Is It Phoenix? Featuring Expressive Iteration, the banned card, and you can play Expressive Iteration if you play exactly this Is It Phoenix Pioneer Challenger deck list. Dimir Control, Gruul Stompy, and Orzhov Humans.
What do you think of these decks, Krim? What's your take on them?
I do think that some of these decks make sense. I'm curious to see the Phoenix deck, right? I mean, like the Phoenix deck is for the most part exactly just what the list is. You just move a few of the numbers around, get Arclight up to 4, and you will still have to add whatever the new 2-drop is from Capenna that is like
Ledger Shredder.
Ledger Shredder, there it is. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that. But yeah, like the blue-black deck, I don't really know if that one is that amazing. But
that's a Crim pile right there.
But like what? Like I don't know. I feel like the blue-black deck you could easily get a full blue-black deck. I mean, I don't know. I like probably the Humans deck the most, if I'm being honest with you. But like, are Humans good? That's the thing. Like why? Like, Rally the Ranks is a bit ambitious, like all of that. But I don't know. I like the Humans deck. I think the Stompy deck is like okay. I haven't seen Mizium Mortars played ever, so I don't know. I mean, I think it's the Phoenix deck that's probably the best out of box, and you get to play with a banned card.
I actually think the Phoenix deck has got to be one of the worst out of the box because it has 2 Phoenixes. Like, to me, that's like,
yeah,
to the point where I'm like, Wizards, why did you even do this? Like, if you can only put 2 of the literal namesake card in the deck because they're too expensive, maybe it's worth just choosing another archetype. Like, 2 Phoenix is just hilarious to me. And Thing in the Ice is the other like big 4 of creature in the deck, and that's a 2 of 2. So I kind of question them even adding Phoenix and not choosing something else. I do agree that I think that the Humans deck to me looks like the most solid, and I think the Gruul deck, I mean, you can go a long way in Pioneer just playing the 8 1-mana mana dorks, Outfish Mystic Lana, where I was like, who cares what you're ramping into? Like, you're probably going to win some games by just casting your stuff ahead of time, even if your deck list isn't optimal. And Control, it seems tough. Like, how do you build a Drago control deck a year or two ahead of time for a meta that is going to shift a ton in that? Because Control's so much about having like the right answers for this specific meta, the right card for this matchup. It seems like a very tall task to be able to build a Drago control precon and have it still be relevant a year later. It looks fine, but I don't know if it matches up super well with the meta. What do you think, Richard?
It does, because you can find whatever answer you need with those Temple of Deceits.
That's Wizards does love putting temples in precons, don't they?
They need to stop. They need to stop that. That's a full 4. By the way, there's a full 4 copies of that.
Let's say you're a standard player and you have the full Pioneer mana base, okay? You buy 2 Is It Phoenix decks, and boom, now you have 4 of Phoenixes and 4 of Thing in the Ice.
That's true.
That actually is true.
I mean, that is the deck. The deck is just those cards and then a real mana base. We don't have the real mana base in these decks.
1 Steam Vents.
If you buy 4 of them, you get your playset of a Shockland.
Oh my god! But then, do you need that? Because then you have.
What's the MSRP on these?
So these are selling for roughly $50 a piece. I think if you buy all 4 together, you can get a bit of a discount, but they're right about 45 to 55. They're going for.
I mean, they're serviceable decks for $50. Like, what are you what are you really expecting here, right? And they give the flavor of the deck. You're still doing Phoenix things, just inconsistently, right? With bad mana, but I don't know. It's okay. Any thoughts on buying multiple decks to make a deck? Like, I would use that for standard, right? But
I would consider that for Phoenix, maybe. If you look at like a tier Phoenix list, it's coming in at like $400+ although a lot of that is the mana base, like probably $200+ is the mana base and sideboard, but you do really get pretty much all the expensive creatures and spells if you buy 2 copies of this, and then you just slowly work on upgrading the mana base. The other ones, I don't think there's much of a reason to buy 2 copies of. Like, they kind of are what they are. You already got 4 of most of your big things. You can upgrade them in other ways, but the Phoenix one I would consider if Phoenix is something that you want to play, and it seems fine from a value perspective. Just like the 2 Thing in the Ice is $26, the 2 Arclights $18, the Steam Vents are $20. So if you buy 2 of those for $100, I think financially you're in fine shape. And I think that's true of all these decks, really. Like, at $50, you can't really go wrong from a value perspective at current prices. Like, things are going to come down, but all of them you're getting more than $50 worth of good cards, essentially. It's not like it's super inflated by a bunch of cheap commons that are adding up or something. Like, just the stapley cards are adding up to $50 or whatever, so they seem like fine buys if you want to get into the format. You can buy 1. You can buy 1 to go play it in FNM or LGS. Which one are you picking?
I mean, you're not wrong. The Gruul deck being able to just have the 8 mana dorks, you know, that's probably going to be the most aggressive thing you can like start with, right? And then just go into Lovestruck. The problem here is that it kind of sucks on the 3-drop slot.
Yeah, a little weak with the double adventure creatures as only 3 drops. They're good cards, but yeah,
right. I don't know, maybe the humans. You have 4 Thalia's lieutenants. You even have 4 concealed courtyards. Oh my god,
the mana is actually like kind of decent-ish in that one.
I think it's got to be the humans one. If I just wanted to pick one up to play, yeah, it's probably that.
I don't think you can go wrong with Luminarch Aspirant and Thalias, like all the Thalias. Or maybe Phoenix. I think Phenix is still.
You think you could win with that deck out of the box? With
okay, if you draw your Phoenixes, isn't it the same as like a real deck? It's just
yeah.
Just if you start with the Phoenixes,
if you can find them. But if they're both in your like bottom 15 cards, you're gonna be so sad.
I'm a little concerned.
You have expressive iteration. It's banned, Seth. You know how strong that card is? It's banned, and you can play it.
That is quite fun. That reminds me of...
Is it enough to carry the whole archetype?
I would also go humans, I think. I think if I was going to tier rank them out of the box, I would go humans, Gruul. I don't even know. control Phoenix. I'm very
Oh,
skeptical.
you're putting
of two
control over
Phoenix.
Phoenix?
I'm very skeptical of having two Phoenixes. If you combine two of them together, it's probably the best one. If I could buy two of each, Phoenix would be S tier. That would be the top tier one. But with only one, I don't know how you're going to kill people with only two Phoenixes.
You're going to find it with expressive iteration.
Seth. Every time I play Phoenix decks, I don't even see any of them, and I have 4. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Business as usual.
I guess that doesn't make any difference then. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to it. But in all honesty, I think it's humans, Phoenix, Groll, and then control. I mean, come on. 4 Temple of Deceits. That's just painful. That's disrespectful. That's just straight up disrespectful.
Well, I hope they keep doing this. Pioneer's been on the rise in the past year, and I like that they're offering players a reasonable starting point. Do I think you could take this in 5-0 League on Magic Online with these decks? You'd have to get really lucky. I think it's possible if you get super lucky. I don't think they're like super duper competitive, but I think they're competitive enough if you want to take the plunge and go to an F&M or something. I think you would not be embarrassed to play any of these decks at an F&M. Maybe the control one, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think you'd be embarrassed to play any of them at an F&M, and you'd probably get some wins with them. So, well, speaking of precons, we got one other bit of precon news, which I'm actually super hyped about, which is Wizards is printing starter commander decks coming the beginning of December of this year. So in a couple of months, they are full-on commander precons, except they're intentionally geared for new players, for people just starting in the commander format. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks about complexity creep. I think the new Unset really highlighted this with just how complex it is, how many mechanics there are. And one of the questions we had on last week's podcast was, how do new players get into Commander, this very complicated format? Is there a way for them to do it, or is it just getting too difficult? And Wizards kind of came out with the answer the very next week by announcing these new player-focused precons. So I'm actually really hyped about this. I think this is like a really important product line to potentially give new players some sort of competitive-ish but a little bit watered down style of commander precon that maybe they can use to learn and get into the format with. But what do you guys think of the idea of starter commander decks?
I think the idea of it is sweet. I love that. I'm kind of curious what the deck lists are. Cause I feel like, like the precons and whatnot, like that kind of exists now aren't too bad, but that's because I'm obviously an enfranchised player. But like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the starter decks right now aren't that bad. So I'm kind of curious what these are loaded with then. Is it just vanilla,
Grizzly Bears?
Yeah, like oh god, is it just 2/2s with like a Tarka World Render as your top end? I'm kind of curious. So they look like they'd be fun though. I like the etched full art kind of like look to them. Please don't make these rainbow foil. I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe rainbow foils are the business. But yeah, like I don't know. I mean, other than that, I mean, is this really any different than any of the precons that already exist? I'm curious to just see how they play. Like the commanders themselves are pretty straightforward, so I do like that. And this seems like a great starting point. What's the price point of these as well?
Yeah, well, there's still a lot we don't know as far as price point or deck list, but go ahead, Richard.
I like the theory, but these don't seem like starter decks to me, right? Look at like Atarka. Flying Trample. Whenever Dragon you control attacks, give it double strike. There's like 3 abilities. There's no reminder text, right? Because it's the foil edged version. Like, what is flying? What is trample? Like, as a new player, I'm trying to remember like upkeep, draw, attack. Like, what's combat? Like,
I'm still trying to figure out how to tap my mana.
Yeah, I would assume they would be like really monocolored decks, very few abilities, and if there is an ability, there would be reminder text for it, right? Like, what is flying? I don't know, right? Like, flying creatures can only be blocked by other flying creatures, right? So it's a little weird, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they like inject good cards in here to get existing players to buy them, so that you give them to your friends. Or is it actually meant for new players where you just show up at Walmart, buy it for $20 or whatever, and then play?
Yeah, I think price point will also be important. I'm hoping they're a little bit cheaper, because I think that's the other thing. It's going to be tough to get someone brand new to buy a $50 precon or whatever they're going for now. But if these are cheaper and $20 and simplified, it could serve a purpose at least. But I think that is a good point that some of these cards are they're definitely not vanilla. So we'll see what Wizards considers new player friendly or starter friendly with these decks as we get going. But anyway, I think those were all of our big topics for today. Oh wait, no, we're missing
Seth,
one huge topic for today.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
I've been waiting all podcast for,
Yes.
Seth.
All right. Well,
non-cultured person.
There's one more.
Yes.
There's one more bit of news about Brothers War, which is we're
Yes.
getting Universes Beyond X
Yes.
Transformers in the set. They are coming in set boosters in the slot that sometimes has Universes Beyond cards or other special cards, but actual Transformer cards. 15 of them. Richard, why don't you give us an example or two of what these cards are like? Because they're all formatted kind of similarly.
I don't know what Transformers are, Seth. We have converters. Converters. Because WotC could not put Transform on these cards. They're all double-sided cards, okay? There's 15 of them. I'll give you Optimus Prime. So Optimus Prime, hero. 3 blue, red, white. So 6 converted mana. 4/8 legendary artifact creature robot. The ability is more than meets the eye. 2 blue, red, white. You may cast this card converted for 2 blue. Red, white. At the beginning of each end step, bolster 1. When Optimus Prime dies, return it to the battlefield converted under its owner's control. The backside, of course, is Optimus Prime, Autobot leader, 6/8, living metal as long as it's your turn. This vehicle is also a creature. Trample, whenever you attack, bolster 2. The chosen creature gains trample until end of turn. When that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, convert Optimus Prime.
Okay, that's sick. That's a lot of words and a lot of things, but like, okay, that's so cool. And the fact that we finally have an Optimus card that, you know, like isn't, I guess, like I think there's another Optimus card, right? But I don't know if it's like official or if it's like even real, but like I love this. I've been waiting to see some Transformers cards. I feel like with Hasbro just being the owner of, like, you know, Wizards and all that or whatever, this was something that was bound to happen eventually. I really, really like these cards. I think they're very flavorful. Except for one thing. We'll wait till we get to that card. But I think Optimus is a sweet, sweet commander. And I can't wait to build around Optimus.
I mean,
so these are legal in Commander, right?
They're eternal legal, yeah.
They're coming in Brothers War. If you want to make a legacy deck, you can. Convert is transform, right? At any time you can just pay to transform.
Sort of. You can cast it. It's kind of like MDFCs, I think. More like MDFCs.
Oh, so you can cast the backside.
You can cast the backside or the front side, yeah.
Oh, but so once Optimus deals damage, he just turns back to the front and can never transform again.
Well, when he dies, then it will convert
when he dies.
again. Yeah. So they each have some other trigger way of converting once they're on the battlefield. So you can cast them either side from your hand, and then they'll flip back and forth based on whatever condition as the game goes along.
So what's weird is Grimlock, the silver bordered card, actually says transform on it with the little registered trademark symbol. But for whatever reason, Wizards of the Coast could not get Hasbro to give them transform to make these cards make some kind of sense, but it's convert. Or is it because it conflicts with the existing transform mechanic? I'm
looking at Grimlock right now, and Grimlock also says convert. Pay to convert a Transformers toy you own. The backside, convert a Transformers toy you own. Is this a Transformers thing? I don't really know Transformers. Is this actually
says transform on it? All right, now I gotta look it up.
Yeah, I just looked it up on this site called mtggoldfish.com, and it appears.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so I don't know Transformers. That's I didn't have TV when I was growing up, so I never got to enjoy the experience of Transformers as a kid. But I'm assuming that's actually they're doing it on purpose. They don't call them converters. I know that they are called Transformers.
Yeah. This is correct.
So there's two versions, right? Okay? So there's 15 Transformers, And there's two versions of each card. There's the normal version, which has like 90s looking cartoon art on it. And then there's Shattered Glass, which is like some CG looking version. And the cards are very purpley, which I totally disagree with because it makes it look Decepticon-ish, even though some of these are Autobots.
Yeah.
And then the cards are, in case you're wondering if your favorite converter is here, Archie, Blaster, Blitzwing, Cyclonus, Flame War,
Wait,
Goldbug.
isn't it RC? It's RC, right? And
I don't
that's
know.
what I thought. I've always called that one RC.
I've never actually encountered this transformer in my in my cartoon viewing. Goldbug, Jetfire, Megatron, Optimus Prime, Prowl, Ratchet, Slicer, Soundwave, Starscream, and Ultra Magnus. And Soundwave makes Ravage tokens, so that's pretty sweet. So there's a Ravage token.
Okay, okay. Since you mentioned it, I didn't want to jump ahead. You said the name. Now I could talk about a few of them. Okay, like I am so excited for Soundwave. I am so excited for Soundwave and the little tokens that he makes. He becomes I've always loved Soundwave just because he is like he kind of just becomes like a boombox, right? Like that's how sick is that?
If you're watching on YouTube, here's my little retro Soundwave.
Wait,
He's the best toy ever because he pops out and you get like little cassettes.
Yeah,
and they transform.
Chest. It's so sick. I absolutely love that. I am definitely building a commander deck around Soundwave, and it's an Esper, so you love to see it. But like that is like my favorite Decepticon, and the other one that I was kind of surprised to see was that Megatron was Mardu and not Grixis.
Wow,
What?
We're going deep. We're going deep on our criticisms.
Wait. But how is Megatron not Grixis? Like
How's he
I
blue?
am. I don't. I mean,
How's he white? That's my question. Should there be white in here?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like the white is out of place. That's why I really think that, like, if it were Grixis, that'd be great. I mean, you have Naya, you have Esper, you have Jeskai. I guess if you have Grixis, that'd be another, like, I guess most of them would be blue-based or have blue in them, but I don't know. I mean, I thought there'd have been at least something in Grixis for Megatron, or that maybe that's Unicron. I don't know. But the thing here is, I'm surprised it's not that.
I feel like I don't know enough Transformer lore, but all the 3-color ones have white in them. I wonder if they felt like they had to all be white for some reason. Are they all good guys? Is there some, they're like, whatever, righteous and moral or something?
Megatron is, for the most part, I would like to say a villain.
Okay.
I don't see many situations where Megatron is a good dude. I think.
Is it like Magneto, where it's like bad, but for other people, but he's trying to do something good for his Decepticons? I don't remember the lore of Transformers anymore. I remember them stealing like power cubes and fighting over power cubes all day. I don't actually remember what the plot was of Transformers.
Wow.
Like Megatron's actually out here trying to rule planets, right? I don't think it's like that. Magneto is definitely a very, very good villain, whatever. But like Megatron is just flat out the cookie cutter, like, twirling of the mustache, tie you to some train tracks, right? Like, so like this is, yeah. I mean, other than that, I think this is a really sweet drop. I think they've done a good job with the majority of them. I was a little bit confused about what More Than Meets the Eye does and how it works, but for the most part, other than that, it looks sweet. The thing that Richard had mentioned though is that the alternate art where everything's in purple border, yeah, I don't understand that. They all look like Decepticons. Like Optimus straight up looks like a Decepticon.
Why?
And they also should have the guild marks that they do when we go to Ravnica, like
the
text. They should have added that emblem of Decepticons or Autobots to the cards as well. I'm not sure why they didn't do that. And also 90s Richard is shattered because Megatron transforms into a tank nowadays. He's been retconned into a tank. Like, he used to be a gun that Starscream used to shoot, but maybe with gun violence and whatnot like that was changed. He's now a tank. So that was a little confusing for me.
Although, yeah, he was like a laser blasting thing, right? I don't know. He looked like Han Solo's little blaster. But yeah, I like the tank change. I think the tank change makes sense because that's kind of whack if like everyone becomes a car and it's like.
That was funny because Starscream would always just wield him.
Yeah, I mean, yes. But the funny thing here is I think Starscream already exists in the Magic universe, and Starscream is pretty much what Tezzeret is, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to see also how the Starscream plays out. Starscream is such a cool card. He is such a cool card.
So I have a question for you guys. So this is coming. This is not a secret lair, right? You can't buy it. It's coming in Brothers War set and collector boosters, and I also think bundles will have something. But how expensive will these be? Like, you're now competing, and you have to compete in this lottery, and like Transformers fans will come and buy them, and like there's not this like print to like, you know, sufficient quantity that we have for Secret Lair, right? Like what is this gonna do for prices?
Well, according to the way everybody's been responding to this news on Twitter and whatnot, no one wants to buy Brothers War anymore. So
what? This is ruining my game.
I thought this was perfect for like 90s boomers. Like this should fall in line with like Street Fighter, or
I don't
people
know.
actually don't like Transformers.
If you just read the announcement, like tweet, and you just read the replies, it's one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen in my life. Like people act like someone walked in and drop kicked their dog. Like I'm just like, and I'm just like laughing hysterically. So if according to them, wait, so you can open this in your normal booster pack? Sorry, this ruins my experience. I'm not buying any Brothers War anymore. And so if that's the case, these are going to be very expensive.
I mean, isn't it a little weird that they're in Magic booster packs alongside, like, I don't know, to me it's a little weird just because Wizards is like, oh, we can't reprint this card people desperately need because it doesn't quite match the flavor of the plane we're going to. And they're like, hey, Brothers War, Transformers. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. Like, either just reprint what you need and say, you know, screw the flavor, or don't print Transformers in one of your flavorful sets.
Today's Transformers, never trust PR talk from Wizards of the Coast.
But like even that in mind, like I think Transformers make sense, right? Like it totally works.
How does it make sense for the Brothers War?
It's an artifact set,
Seth.
So you think that like as Mishra and Urza were battling it out, there were just like Transformers converting all around them? That's the lore?
I mean, yeah, why not? Like I think the lore in Magic is already mostly nonsense anyways, right? So why not throw that in there?
So I mean, so okay, to bring it back. So I do think it is weird that they insert this into a standard set, but like I feel bad for Transformers fans. Like, if you just wanted Transformer cards, now you have to buy like random set and collector boosters. Like, you can't just get them, right? Like, I don't care about Magic cards, right? I just want my Transformers, right? So that's weird. So, like, I guess if the net of this is the price would be cheaper than if you were to buy a Secret Lair, then I guess that's good, right? But if the net of this is like Optimus is like, you know, $100 or something, then I think that's pretty bad. But remember, this is going into Brothers War, which has the schematics and the X of 500 cards and whatever, right? So maybe the Chase Mythic will be, you know, 5 cents in standard. All the pricing will be eaten up by these cards, and like Magic players will be net happy. I'm not sure. It's a very interesting experiment.
I don't think the prices will be too out of control. Like, there's not a big history of these set booster exclusives being super expensive. Like, Go Shintai Life's Origins is one of the 20-ish most played commanders, and that's like $5 or $8 depending on where you get it. And that was a set booster exclusive. So unless maybe there's just like millions of Transformers fans that are going to come in and like snag up these cards, and I guess that could drive up the price. But my initial thought would be these cards aren't going to be prohibitively expensive. They're not going to be, you know, $100 a piece or something. I would hope not. And maybe the reason they're doing this is if you sell a Walking Dead secret lair drop to Walking Dead fans, all you're really doing is getting them, getting money from them. But if you actually make Transformers fans go and buy booster packs, they're actually getting some magic cards too. Maybe it increases the odds of those people actually experimenting with the game or trying out the game. Maybe that's what Wizards is going for by putting them in normal packs instead of selling them by themselves.
No, what's happening here is that Wizards is letting you know what's going to happen for the next Universes Beyond set. We have Lord of the Rings. Whatever. That's a caca series. So we're going to go ahead and let that yeah, I know, I said it again. We're just going to let that set, sail into the sunset. But then the set eventually, somewhere down the line, let it be Transformers, please. Then, oh my God, please give me the Universes Beyond Transformers set. I want I want to see them. I want to see them reprint Grimlock. I want to see them get throw in Beast Wars with it. Get all of that together. Just give me all of that in one set. So
I feel this is all fun and games as long as people like the IP. Wait until Monopoly comes or something, right? Or I don't know what IP Hasbro owns that we don't like. I guess Fortnite. Imagine Fortnite being inserted into Standard, right? People would go ballistic. So, but at the same time, we're being conditioned, right? People will first we're like, oh my God, Lord of the Rings in Modern, that's ridiculous, right? Or Secret Lair in Legacy, that's ridiculous, right? Now we're like, set boosters, it's okay, right? Transformers, they're vehicles, and it's Hasbro, it's getting there. They're wearing us down, and I think it will be hugely successful. Actually, I think I'm going to buy all the Transformers, and I think a lot of people will just buy them for the cards. I think this may be the better gimmick than the schematics for the set, right?
Seriously,
set schematics of Transformers. Oh my goodness, right?
Soundwave, yeah, give me those tokens.
How many set boosters do I need to buy to mathematically get these? What do I need to do here?
We don't know the distribution yet, so we'll have to see how frequently they show up. Let us know what you think. If you're someplace where you can comment, what do you think about these cards and how they're being released? I'm really curious what the overall thought is. To me, they all seem safe, though. I guess that's the good news. I don't think any of these look... None of them look especially
There's
strong.
There's too much text to understand anything. Yeah. I just look at the pictures.
Can't read all that. But yeah, they seem like you can build a commander deck around them, but we're not going to see any of these be legacy staples or even stuff that shows up a ton in Commander, I don't think. There's not a dockside or anything like that among these cards.
Some things,
do you think these make it into alchemy?
Oh, please, God, yes.
You know how Wizards just took Commander Legends, Baldur's Gate, and just jammed it into Arena?
They could.
Will there be an Optimus in transformation, or converting noise? Like that stuff? These cards are sweet, except for there are a few misses. I'm surprised there's no meld. or something like that. I guess none of these exactly merge together, so that wouldn't work. That's why we need a whole set. And on top of that, they're kind of doing the whole arcane thing that they did better this time around than they did with the arcane secret lair. The arcane secret lair was a bunch of literal just screenshots, and the characters are miniature, super small, and you can't really tell where is this a card or is this just you made this proxy? These do a better job, but maybe they look better in person, but some of this artwork does literally just feel like they screen capped it and pasted it onto a card.
That's the exact reason I like them.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
maybe that's cool, but I find that's kind of comical.
Is it actually screen cap? Someone who's watched every animated episode of Transformers, are these actually screen caps, or did they just redraw them?
I feel like these have to be screen caps because I swear I've seen that. I've definitely seen Megatron fire that blaster. Maybe that's just such a generic scene. But look at Soundwave. I swear I've seen Soundwave do that.
That's what we want though, right? If I don't really care about Transformers, but if it was NBA Jam Secret Lair Drop or something I knew and liked a lot, and they did their new reinterpretation of it and it didn't look the same, that would turn me off to the idea of it.
Okay. So
if the art was not the same, yeah.
So if they made a Buffalo Bills secret lair, you would rather them have just a screenshot of Josh Allen or an art version of Josh Allen?
Well, these are already art versions. It's tough. Josh Allen's like a real person. I wouldn't want a photo of Josh Allen. That would be a little bit strange.
I don't know. It feels like it would just be like it were a photo of Josh Allen, right, as opposed to actually.
I think you need the nostalgia though. Like if it didn't look like the 80s cartoon or whatever, I think that really defeats a lot of the nostalgia purpose of it, probably.
That's totally fair, and I could see that. And I think that's why there's that weird purple border or whatever the shattered glass version is.
Yeah.
But those are just awkward. I don't know. Those also don't feel right. But yeah. Just minor things. Otherwise, I think this will be really cool. They're all like super not good. So like they're like pretty tame. So I don't know.
Yeah, we need one to break into Legacy and like dominate the Legacy metagame, and then Wizards will have to bring it to Magic Online, and then they have to make the Magic version of it. I want to see them like actually put this to use, because like, oh, we can reprint them with Magic names and stuff if we need to. Like, I want to see them actually do it. But I don't know if Transformers is it.
It's gonna happen eventually, but I'm not sure that Transformers is the universes beyond that gets there. But sooner or later, they're gonna mess up, and it's gonna be print a broken card in one of these sets.
Maybe it's Goldbug. That's the closest one.
Yeah,
I think Goldbug has to be the closest one to being, I guess, like 60 card constructible. Like,
I guess you could
played.
Try to Violet into play in a human's deck or something. The backside's like kind of legit against Force of Will, I guess. You can't be countered in human spells, but still. Yeah. Anyway, we're going super long today, so that's Transformers. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you can comment where you're listening. I don't think we can actually get to fish mail today. We had way too much to talk about. But Richard, if people want to send in fish mail for next week, how should they go about that?
All right, queue up your fish mail on Twitter with the hashtag MTGFishmail at MTGGoldfish, and we'll get to your questions next week.
And that brings us to the end of episode 401 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Graham, thanks for hanging out. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a lovely week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.